Good afternoon. It is roughly 1:45. We have Tony Cristini and several friends of Greenbelt, and we are being taped. So if you just say your name, address, all three, and then we'll get started. Go ahead, Tony.
Okay, sure. Tony Cristini, 931 South Point Circle.
Okay.
Elizabeth Sneathan, 179 Bluegrass Village.
Jonelle Strauss, 608 Hess Street.
Okay, great. Okay, Tony, I'll throw it over to you, and then we can...
Okay. So what I think you should now have is our
Yes.
packet of information before you, and the first page is the levy. I kind of just like to jump into the levy and explanation, but I don't know if I should introduce who we are.
Sure, go ahead. Yeah, feel free.
So
there's no time limit, so...
Okay. So Friends of the Greenbelt is an ad hoc group that got together recently. We're from all different kinds of backgrounds, a lot of environmental group members, so Rick Landenberger of the West Virginia Land Trust is a member, and of WVU. Colleen Harshbarger, the head of the Health and Wellness Committee, Morgantown's Health and Wellness Committee. Matthew Cross, the head of the Pedestrian Safety Board. And we've interacted with the Bicycle Board and gotten some support from them. But we're people who've been working on these issues for a long time in relation to green space acquisition, Bow Park, and Haymaker Forest in particular. So that's what we are. We're an ad hoc. We're not a 501c3 or anything like that. We're not requesting any money on our behalf. So we can talk about that more, I guess, as we go. But I guess I'll just start by just introducing the levy, unless would you like to add anything to that?
Just to kind of build on what Tony said, that, yeah, there's sort of a group of people that have been working on some of the green space issues for a while, but then there's another sort of contingent of people that have kind of recently gotten involved with this and are really excited about the idea of a green belt. And a lot of the people from that contingent are people that run, bike, and use the Bow Park system currently and the rail trail system currently. So just to kind of give you more of an idea of who's in this group.
Okay, the first thing you just stated, so I think we need the question comes out is, if you're not a 501c3, have you gone through and do you have any letters from Bow Park that state that? Okay.
No.
So you can see where that's your first
Well, here's
problem.
Here's the thing. We're essentially requesting this money on Bow Park's behalf.
Right. Okay, I can request on behalf of, the city of Morgantown or Ed, but you have to have something in writing that would. You understand? I mean, if we're going to put I'm not causing a fight.
I know.
Serious.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I think that's a legal question, and I've consulted with municipal league lawyers, and whether or not a citizen could request money for a city or city entity, and they saw no problem with that. And in fact, if a county board put up a levy and it passed, and a city were to refuse that money,
yeah, except that if you remember, we sent you a letter that are the guidelines, and the guidelines make it very clear that we have certain guidelines to follow, and I don't care what the municipal league person said, the state law supersedes this, and and I'm not, I'm just saying.
I understand, but I'm just saying we're not a 501c3.
Right.
We've been advised it doesn't matter. Okay. I understand what you're saying. The state law is and what was requested of us. We're advised it doesn't matter. Now that may or may not be, but that's our understanding. Okay.
Oh, okay. That I can understand. Okay. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'll be quiet and see. Do you have some question before I continue? Or?
No, go ahead and I'll let him continue.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay. Sorry.
So let me just read through the levy
go
so
ahead.
we know what we're talking about.
Okay.
And, we tried to get it as the exact language that we believe is required as possible. So I'll read it here exactly. The Bow Park levy. Levy to the voters of Monongalia County under provisions of West Virginia Code 11.816 to provide for parks, trails, and recreational programs. The purpose shall be to provide new funding, maintenance, and acquisition of parks, trails, and recreational programs in Monongalia County, West Virginia. 2, the total of the needed funds is approximately $2 million per fiscal year for the next 5 years. 3, all funds received pursuant to the excess levy shall be utilized for the maintenance and/or improvements of parks and recreational needs and for park acquisition and development in Monongalia County, West Virginia. Any surplus funds received shall be utilized for the same purpose. The levy funds will be used for the following projects per year, and that's about $1.1 million for boat park operation and maintenance, and $790,000 for boat park Haymaker Forest Park and Trails acquisition and development.
Okay.
And then if you just flip, I mean, we can just kind of skim right through
That
this.
would be great, if you want to hit the highlights.
Sure, I've highlighted. Everyone has the same highlights in their packet. On the next page is just a summary of the levy again, and then an explanation, a little bit more detailed explanation of the levy below it. Explaining the $1.1 million proposal there in the explanation. That is the 2017 allocation, city allocation to Boat Park. And it's midway between the 2018 allocation and what Boat Park requested for 2019. So I just sort of arbitrarily picked that as a ballpark basic operation and maintenance number. And then, maybe more interestingly, the second part of the funding, I'll just read that. Regarding this Boat Parks levy of $790,000 proposal for Haymaker Forest Park and Trails acquisition and greenbelt funding over 5 years. This is the amount that would provide for Boat Parks acquisition of Haymaker Forest Park and Trails at the seller's most recent offer, minus funds that the city of Morgantown publicly stated it has available for initial payments. So in other words, the county and city would split the purchase here. It is widely known that the city remains in renewed negotiations with the sellers with the expectation that the price can be lowered. Any surplus levy funds would be applied to park and trails development or other greenbelt acquisition. So that's just a brief explanation of the levy.
So just in regards to that number, this levy, the proceeds over 5 years would be 3.95.
Yes.
And you're saying, and what was the boat park acquisition? I mean, what was the Haymaker acquisition cost that you're using? Is that the 5.2?
5.2. Yep.
Okay, so you're saying the city already has a million.
The city stated that the city is obligated to pay $500,000 upfront with an additional. Well, what they've committed to in their contract, and I can give you the contract.
Yes.
They've committed to $1.5 million over the first 6 months.
Right.
And they stated they had that.
Right.
Paul Brake stated that in a public meeting.
Okay.
So they have that, and so the balance would be from the levy. And it was the county, so, it's a county-city split.
So, but that's still at that 5.2 number that was so widely talked about.
Right. And I can say two things on that. One is, this is a very strange selling situation because it's a somewhat hostile seller. They have not provided an appraisal of their own purpose. Usually land deals, in my experience, are sold much closer to the seller's appraisal than to the buyer's appraisal. Everyone's wanting the city to buy this at the buyer's appraisal, which, is naturally typically going to be low, and it's usually sold for something higher than that. So the other part of that is that the negotiations are real, in our understanding, that are ongoing now between the city and the seller, and the reason they're real is because the West Virginia Land Trust is involved and can, as a stipulation of the sale, it's highly likely that this land will go into permanent reserve, which will provide a huge tax break for the seller. So it's pretty reasonable to assume that this price is going to come down from 5.2 million, and so that there will be, if the levy gets put on the ballot, if it passes, there's going to be extra funds, beyond the 3.9 million.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, no problem. So, so then getting on the next page, then getting back to the boat park side of this levy, that's just there was a recent study done. That's the capital needs list that was drawn up for boat park, and I'll just draw your attention to the last three items there. You can see how large they are. 14 million plus 10 million, 24 million. Just the point is there are tens of millions of dollars of outstanding needs here, deferred maintenance and so on, that boat park has. And we'll talk more about the boat park budget going forward. Mm-hmm. On the next page, this is boat park updated their about page last week. I don't know why. Maybe because
they knew you were coming.
There's so much going on.
Yeah, they knew you were coming, Tom.
So, and this is taken from that. This is not the entirety of their Abouts page, these next three pages, but this is taken from that. I read some of this morning. Just in the middle of that page, they note that they lack dedicated funding for both operational and capital needs. They've got aging facilities, inadequate staff numbers. Flipping to the next page, in the highlighting, there they mention some of their expenses, the ice rink up top, the pools down below. Flipping to the next page, a little bit more on the ice rinks up top. And then in the middle, it's pretty important. Again, I read this morning, but it's worth repeating. When Boat Park was formed, we had a full-time staff of 18. Now, 37 years later, we have a full-time staff of 16. And skipping, and then you can see all of the parks they added, skipping to the bottom of that paragraph, yes, we are severely understaffed. And then they list some of their, business expenses right below that. But the point is that it's uncontroversial that Boat Park is under-resourced financially. And here, that is so widely known. I mean, but there's some more evidence of it. Well, that takes care of the, sort of the first part of the levy. Although at this point, I just kind of want to encapsulate what we're proposing here. Together, these two parts of this levy taken together are a mechanically simple proposal. Plug the gap in funding for Boat Park. Its resources are like this, its needs are like this. Everybody knows it, and it's uncontroversial. Bridge the county to the city with Boat Park Greenbelt, and I'm going to talk about that coming up here. And allow the voters to decide together. And allow the city and county voters, of course they're all one and the same, to decide together and to share the funding. So, the need is pretty clear for Boat Park. Now let's take a look at the other half of this levy, the Haymaker Forest and Greenbelt. You can see the map there, and highlighted in green is Haymaker Forest, approximately. Highlighted in yellow is the bulk of the rest of the Greenbelt. To the left of the green is White Park. To the top left of the yellow is Marilla Park. This Greenbelt, which includes Haymaker Forest, and actually highlighted in yellow, believe it or not, is just two properties. This Greenbelt would bridge White Park to Marilla Park. In other words, it would help bridge the Mon River Trail through White Park to Marilla Park to the Deckers Creek Trail. The Deckers Creek Trail connects those neighborhoods there: Jerome Park, Woodburn, Norwood Association, Saberton. The Haymaker Greenbelt connects the Greenbag Road neighborhoods. In other words, this is a real connector trail. It connects the neighborhoods to the trails that go into the county. It connects the city to the county, and it also connects the county to the city neighborhoods through this Greenbelt because it connects the major rail trails. So it's a real kind of, I think, unifying project. It wouldn't just connect county residents, whether they're urban or rural county residents, to the neighborhoods. It would connect visitors. And Joe, now you can speak to how important the trails are to visitors who come here. Yeah,
so Susan Riddle spoke at a recent city council meeting. She's from the
Greater Morgantown CVB.
Thank you. I had the acronym in my head.
GMCVB. Yeah. I'm on their board. That's right.
Okay, great. And she pointed out that the questions about the trails are the number one question that people ask when they call the Visitors Bureau. They want to know all sorts of specifics about the trails, the grade, the composition of the surface. And she also emphasized in her presentation the importance of getting people to stay. She had a phrase, and Mr. Bloom, maybe you remember it, but something about getting them to stay one more night.
Yeah, heads for beds.
Extra. Okay, there you go. And that people, if they're in town for another purpose, WVU graduation or something, if there's something to do, people will stay an extra night. And I think our trails are something that people stay an extra night for. And the more trails we have, they'll come back and stay another night again. They'll tell their friends. I meet people on the trails from Michigan, from most recently India, from all over. And these are a real asset to our city. And I think it's an investment that continues to pay dividends. And I've lived here since '96. And I mean, how many more hotels do we have now than we used to have? You know, all the development in the county out by the University Town Center, there's hotels going in out there, and my understanding is that those rooms are taxed, and there's a special, tax that helps support the county, and so we're bringing in people to the county. So I think it's a good investment going forward. And then we also have the trail, the Caperton Trail that can connect to the trail in Pennsylvania. So if Morgantown is a launch point to do these kind of major trails for people who ride bikes and stuff, it's I think a real tourist attraction that will bring people in, and maybe not just for one more night, but as a destination. So.
And again, to connect these two parts of the levy proposal together, if you're going to add trail system, add to the trail system, you better shore up the base of Boat Park, the operations and maintenance base. So that's why these two levy proposals go together. So I guess we'll just kind of continue on through here. The next page is the Monongalia parcel viewer snapshot. And I've highlighted, well, let's just start at the top left. That 42 kind of pointing to the side, that's White Park. I've outlined it in a yellow line.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and if you drop down to number 8, also on its side, that's Haymaker Forest. That's that solid yellow. If you drop down below, go down through South Point Circle, you come to the other side of the Greenbelt, and you see there's two parcels there, two properties, and those are investor parcels, business investor parcels. In fact, all of those parcels there are investor parcels. And so if you get those two investor parcels in Haymaker, that's the bulk of the Greenbelt, because John Poole Road, which you can see a public road there, connects, even if you don't complete the rest of the Greenbelt through those unhighlighted parcels, which are, by the way, also investor business-owned parcels. Very much, and or businesses, so it would be very much like the Deckers Creek Trail through there through Saberton. But even if you don't buy those parcels, you can use John Poole Road with a nice bike lane and pedestrian path to connect to finish the Greenbelt. The one parcel that you might wonder about is that number 9 on its side below the bottom left of South Point. That's a active cow pasture along the creek. So you could, surely West Virginia Land Trust could work with them to get a greenbelt through there. There are some other options to go around that if not. And it may seem, and the rest of that to the left, number 6, if you see that next to Haymaker, to the left of Haymaker, that's the cemetery. And in fact, that space between 6 and 8, that's forest, fully forested. It's essentially an extension of Haymaker that's owned by the cemetery. West Virginia Land Trust could put a trail through there. Rick Landenberger of the trust has said, no problem to put a trail throughout that entire Greenbelt that would connect. If you go past, all the way parcel number 22 to the bottom right, you're back into Marilla Park and the Deckers Creek Trail. So when we talk about Greenbelt, that's the Greenbelt. It connects White Park to Marilla Park, connects the river trail to the creek trail. It connects the county trail system to the neighborhoods, and it goes through Haymaker Forest. Haymaker Forest around South Point Circle. So that's those parcels. We've informally heard that there would be some interested sellers there, and compared to Haymaker Forest, they would be affordable. Is my understanding. More affordable. Other than that, I just have sort of at the end there, a long version of an article that's coming out in the Sierra Club News by Jonelle and myself. It basically gives the history of the 3-year history of the effort to preserve by Haymaker Forest, and how the city's comprehensive plan identified Haymaker Forest as a keystone in the development of a greenbelt corridor. And I should add that first map that we looked at is from the Morgantown comprehensive plan. That's from the plan, and that's the greenbelt that it refers to. So it's a real connector greenbelt. The comprehensive plan designates that forest as reserve. You might be interested to note that the Monongalia County's plan, conservation plan designates that also to be reserved.
Just to correct you, there's no Monongalia County
I know,
comprehensive plan.
right, I know. But you
I
have,
serve on the planning commission.
I understand,
and
you have the
worked.
planning districts, though.
Yes.
And with those the planning district plan, you do have a conservation map, that's the title, for the whole county,
Yeah.
which maps the whole county for areas of development. And
I understand,
for,
but there
right.
is no comprehensive.
I understand.
Just so that it's
Yeah,
a
that was,
point of,
that was your alternative to the comprehensive plan, right? You could do that or the other, so that's where that conservation map can be found. And it designates that trail area for just that, reserve and not development. So flipping to the next page, you can see that 3 neighborhood association presidents 3 years ago signed a petition paper, and we presented it to the county commission and to the city council, requesting for, in quote, their public purchase and stewardship of as much of Haymaker Forest as possible. So this is a long-standing community effort. You can see more on that. And there's also some urgency to this. On the next page, in the middle of the next page, the second to last page, it points out that developers are doing have done core samples in there this spring. They're looking to move on this. The owners and the developers are. The owners want to recoup some money, and they're working with developers. Initially, they were working with Dan Ryan, and I don't know who took the core samples, though. That came after the Dan Ryan involvement. Maybe it was Dan Ryan. I don't know. And then the final page is just a brief note on what we already talked about, that there are real and serious negotiations ongoing between the city and the sellers of Haymaker Forest as part of that Greenbelt acquisition.
I have just one more thing.
Sure.
I think Bow Park's vision, as I understand it, is to connect the parks. And
Inside the city.
Inside the city, okay.
That said, all the land we're talking about here is in the county.
But the city is also in the county, so.
Okay, except that I want to clarify now, you weren't here, but I told Tony.
Oh.
You need to clarify, Bow Park is in charge of city parks.
Okay.
We are not any part of that.
Okay.
They decided, for whatever reason, there was problems. They moved away, and they are only in charge of the city parks. The county does not have the authority to go in there.
Okay.
And the county runs their parks.
Okay. Well, I mean, maybe it's time to revisit that. So it used to be something.
It's a law, statutory law. We can't.
Oh, well.
Well, not
there's probably-
formally.
No, I
Not-
think what she's talking about is it's probably, there's been a lot of talk about the way that the parks used to be ran and the way they are now. And with Bow Park's problems, maybe we ought to have a more comprehensive conversation. And that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody would disagree with that.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to disrupt. Okay,
No,
go
that's
ahead.
okay. That's all I
Okay.
wanted to say was, kind of a connected system. I mean, I've lived in a place that is continuing to expand a green belt along a river from the city where it started out beyond the original county, Ada County, into surrounding counties. I mean, it just kind of, it grows over time. And the city I'm referring to is Boise, Idaho, which is the nation's fastest growing city in the country. And in part, it's because, in my opinion, that it has this great greenbelt system, and people want to be active, and they want to be healthy, and they want a safe alternative transportation route. And we've had serious accidents and fatalities on our roads, and there's people here who love to ride their bikes, and they say, not here. I would not ride on the roads here. It's not safe.
No. Good.
The question that keeps going through my head is, okay, we're talking about this, and this is on behalf of Bow Park, on behalf of the city. But what have you had conversations with those two entities, and why not bring them as part of this?
Sure. I'm not going to really be kind about this. In my opinion, the City Council's vote at the Committee of the Whole was the most ridiculous vote in the history of Morgantown, when they voted to not even discuss approaching the county for funding, general funding for Bow Park. When they voted that way and they split 4-2 on it, one member was absent, we said, well, we should do what they should have done, and we should approach the county to pick up where the city has failed to act in its own best interest for its park system. And again, this, like I say, this could not be more mechanically simple, this funding arrangement. No entity in the history of the world probably would turn down operations and maintenance funding, especially an entity that is so underfunded, and that says we are underfunded, we are understaffed, we are under-resourced, everything is old. So there's no like mechanical problem with it. They're going to accept the funding, and there's no two ways about that. If they didn't accept it, again, they could be forced to accept it.
Just like we were talking this morning with the ice rink, though, and again, we have to put something on the ballot. We try to remove any assumptions.
Yeah.
But there's huge assumptions. You know, the assumption is when I asked about land, you know, the assumption is, okay, well, we're going to build this, and if the money's there, the city's going to give us land. You know, it could end up in a fight for 5 years to figure out where this thing would be built, and meanwhile, you're collecting money from the taxpayers.
I'm not building anything.
I'm talking about that example.
Right, yeah.
So in this case, we're saying, okay, collect the money, and we'll figure it out later. And we operate a little bit more.
I'm saying that that's just not the case. You see what I'm saying? I just have a different conception of what we're talking about here. I'm saying there's nothing to figure out.
Well, there is, because we have to put in, like what he's saying, in the levy. We have to say in the levy call exactly where the money, exactly where the money is going.
No, you don't.
Wait.
No, you don't. Because you didn't in 2016. Mon River Trails Conservancy, what was their levy for? 3 words. Operations and maintenance.
That wasn't what we passed. No. The county commission.
That's what it says.
That's what it said, and that's what you said.
That's what the
For
order
Beauport.
says.
For Beauport.
No, for the rail trail.
rail
That's what the levy order
Okay.
says.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, but that's what it says.
Okay. Well, we're both in agreement that, I think everyone's in agreement that, we would like to see more money for Bow Park. So I'm
Yes.
going to give you immediately $702,500. So if you want to get a pen, I will give you exactly where you can find that money.
We're here to ask you.
Okay, and here, let me explain to you. Wait a second. If I'm required,
Tell me.
if I'm required to put a tax on the people, if I can find money before I can do that, I'm going to show you exactly where it is in their budget.
That's a different process. We're here with a proposal for a levy.
And I'm saying one of my concerns would be, why would I put a levy on if I can find you the money? So let me just
hypothetical.
No, I will give you
nothing to do with why we're here today.
Excuse me, but this is what I want to share with you. You want to find the money because you're going to ask the taxpayers. Here we go. First of all, the city gets $480,000 plus $480,000 for hotel motel tax. That's $480,000. Up until several years ago, all that money went to recreation. Now they're only giving to Bow Park $197,500. That's their priority. So that's the first thing. So you now have 200, so you have the difference there. You then have, in the last several years, and you're using your own facts, Bow Park now pays $350,000 for health insurance, which they never paid before, and $75,000 in liability insurance. That comes to $702,500 that 5 years ago they were getting money on.
Here's what we don't disagree on. We don't disagree that any entity could find ways to save money. We just take that for granted.
You asked me about a levy, and I am trying to say, before I would even consider it, I would ask you to go back to the city and say, here is your priorities. Here's where money used to go to Bow Park. It's not going there anymore. It would be difficult for me to put a tax on. First of all, I can't force, and I said it's a dilemma. You cannot make the city do something and put them in debt, and that's what you'd be doing. Okay,
We're removing their debt, essentially, by funding their operations and maintenance.
They don't own the property.
We're not.
You're asking us to buy.
There's 2 parts to this levy. As far as the operation and maintenance go, there's no property involved.
And that's a city function. And I am showing you where there is $700,000.
So,
Go ahead.
Couple questions.
Sure.
So the money you mentioned, is that corresponding to people's health insurance? Is that what you're saying? That they're
They
used to?
abandoned paying the health insurance.
The
for
city
their
used to
workers.
pay for
The
it.
city used to pay for it.
But now it's
So-
coming out of the Boat
So
Park
you're
budget.
wondering
now
why
coming out
Bow
of the
Park
Bow
was
Park
short?
budget.
Yes, sorry.
I mean,
So
it's
you're
just-
asking that question,
Okay.
I'm giving
Okay,
you
well,
what
here's
happened.
here's my other question.
Yes.
So, and I could be wrong with
Sure.
my figures, so I'm sure you'll correct me if I am.
Sure.
That my understanding is Bow Park's budget, 1.17
Yes.
million comes from the city, and 50,000 comes from the county. Is that right?
Yes. Because, well, again,
Our 50,000
Actually,
is
it
an
was
agreement that was
75.
reached.
it's 75,000 now,
Yeah.
but go ahead.
Our
Wait, we'll explain.
funding,
Go ahead.
our funding was an agreement in programming, not to fund Bow Park, okay?
Yeah, I understand that.
It was
But-
for
but-
concert series.
But
and
currently,
that.
that's where it stands.
Because we
right?
don't also fund the city roads, we don't, city engineering department, we don't fund departments in any city.
We just
Well,
thought this was a way that we could work together.
Yeah.
Okay, WVU, County Commission.
City council
and
went to
City
Bow
Council.
Park, Bow Park requested
Bow
that
Park.
money, we gave exactly what they asked.
So,
Right. So that just seems uneven, right?
it's not uneven, this was just simply request,
1.17
no, this was
versus
just simply
50K.
It's a
request for
city
programming.
Park,
we wanted to
city
do.
run. No, no, it's very
It's an
clear.
urban sprawl county
No,
park.
it isn't.
Yes,
Look.
it is. Not officially, but come on. There are no
Yes.
urban county parks. There are 3 rural county parks,
Yes.
but there are no urban. So all the urban sprawl, all the urban growth residents use Bow Park as their neighborhood parks because
No.
they live all around it and they don't pay into
I
it.
think
I
we're
mean,
getting
if-
away from
Yeah,
why we're here.
Okay,
the
I'm
issue
sorry.
and the
I'm
question,
Yeah.
the
This is
reason
not
for
a-
my question
This
is,
is not a debate issue, please.
Sorry.
just like I don't particularly agree with saying, here, Bow Park, you can find this in your budget, I'd be telling the city how to run their city. What you're asking us to do is where Bow Park or the city has fallen short. So I kind of feel like we're subverting their judgment.
Well, I feel like you would be stepping in to fill the gap. I mean, you should work together.
We should work together, but this, we know better, this is how you should do it, is one of the reasons one of the things I came into office and didn't want to do. I want to work together. I don't want to be sitting here saying, well, you really should have done this, so let us help you,
I understand, but remember, it's a referendum countywide, which includes city voters. A third of the voters, a third of the taxpayers are going to be from the city. So it's everyone working together here. And the people, I think, should decide whether or not they want to fund Bow Park. And it's city and county residents who would be funding it.
Yeah.
It's not like
And I
it's
agree
not
with
like
you,
the
but you
county's
need
coming
Bow
down on
Park in the city to
No, I
buy
know,
off
but
on
you
it.
can understand that this has been a contentious issue for the city, and now it's being brought onto our lap
Yeah, it's thrown
to
on
to fill in where the city might be considered to be falling short.
right.
So-
and I'm saying don't punish Bow Park because you guys have issues.
No,
with the city.
that's the last thing I want to do is punish.
But that's the
Bow Park.
effect of not putting this referendum before the voters to decide if they want to fund Bow Park.
Yeah, because you're not actually committing
Well-
the money up front. It's asking people, do they want to pay?
Okay, and I perfectly agree with that, but one concern I have is doing this in this manner, in this time, in this current political environment where it's all kind of, everybody's stirred up about the Haymaker Force and stuff, it's almost setting it up for failure. And it could become a vote, a referendum on Bow Park where people, for whatever reason, just want to shoot it down. I would prefer a more measured approach where we figure out, again, I'm still considering this, but I think we need to work on a solution where we can be better partners with Bow Park in terms of funding. I think we all agree with that. How do we get there, and how do we make sure that at some point we bring the public along? Because no one disagrees that Bow Park's underfunded. I worked over Bow Park for 10 years while going through school. I'm very familiar with Bow Park. I'm very familiar with how they were falling apart 15 years ago.
It's uncontroversial.
So no one disagrees that, and everybody loves green space. The one time I've been to the pool this year, you know where I went? Waynesburg.
Yeah. Oh, I get it.
That's what we should have here.
I just think the voters should decide this and not the
I agree with Sean, however, it comes down to my way of thinking of foisting something on a body.
Foisting a choice.
You're not foisting a choice on the city of Morgantown or Beau Park when you try and do from this seat, let's just say from this seat, doing what you look to do. Believe me, I'm a farmer, okay? And I believe in, my property was taken by the interstate, okay? My property was taken by the city, okay? So you're looking at an individual who understands trying to preserve certain entities in certain areas for quality of life. And I applaud your efforts, and I actually agree in that, in this belt. I don't disagree at all with it.
I wish somebody would foist the choice on me whether or not to accept millions of dollars. I'd love to have that choice foisted on me.
Okay.
There is a dilemma there, okay? It is a hard dilemma to take a body, particularly when you have to deal with these bodies. In other words, Beau Park chose, and the city chose in 1980 to create Beau Park for the city. And there was a county recreational commission that existed.
When did the people get to
that.
choose?
Pardon?
When do the people get
That's
to
who
choose?
they elect. But I'll tell you, I
That's
think
what
I have a
referendums are for.
compromise.
But
I have a compromise. You said you want us to bring this to the people.
Yeah.
And my compromise is, okay, what I will ask the two county commissions to do is to sit and work with Beau Park and sit and work with the city council to come up with a plan. That is the direction to go, but I can't put it on to them. We have to work through the bodies that are there, and that's basically what we're going to do, is just listen and talk with them. That is how the political system works.
That's not how referendums work. You have the power to put this referendum on. You're choosing not to, and that is duly
Not
noted.
to.
That's duly noted.
We haven't made a
We're just having
decision yet.
conversation.
That's
We don't make
what
any
I'm
decisions
hearing.
in this
Well,
forum.
right now, you haven't, maybe what Sean can do, because he gave it to Mark, a copy of the actual, how a levy looks. We can't accept this. This doesn't
Sure you
meet
can.
any of the requirements.
Sure you can.
The state,
Here's a copy of it.
there's a
actually.
copy. You have to put it in.
I have it. I'm sorry. I have
Okay,
it.
it has to come before us.
You
72 days before, and it has to come before us in that
71.
format.
71.
It's before
71
you. It's before
days.
you right now. I don't need to.
No,
present,
it isn't.
I don't need to present to you Beau Park's financial
No.
status. We're not a 501c3. There's nothing to present to you there. We've presented everything that we need to present.
Are you telling me you presented to us right now in that form? You know how much money that you're requesting, where the funds are going to go. It has to be in this legal form.
It's on the front page.
That isn't accepted by the state auditor. I'm trying to explain
The
this
piece
to
that's
you.
missing is the breakdown, your breakdown by properties.
So but that comes from the assessor's office. It's a simple
Well-
request to the assessor's.
But you have to put that
You
in
have
your
to do it.
proposal.
You use 18 numbers because we're not going to know till next year.
That's fine. I'm saying this takes like one day, and you're using it as an excuse to block the whole referendum.
I'm not using any
No,
excuse.
well,
I'm following the law, and I'm sorry. And let me just also clarify one other thing. You said that the city has $1.5 million. I talked with the city manager. That's not correct. What he has is $1.5 million that's already earmarked for other projects.
I understand. He was very clear on that. Yeah, he's very
Okay,
clear.
but so there's a difference
They can
between
move
you
it-
have the
right.
money, so therefore it's up to the city. I can't force the city
They
to
effectively
make those
have the
dec-
money, and they said they effectively
I'm
have
not
the
here
money.
to argue. We're trying to help you
I
understand
get
the
it,
process.
I get it. I think we just have differing views.
Yeah, mine follows the law.
And we're outlaws. No, wait, before we
No, see, that again, this is the problem. Because you don't agree with my position, I'm sorry, I'm one of three people. There are two others can make other decisions. But I made it very clear, and I'll say it to you. 2 years ago, when the levy came up about the Morgantown baseball, I voted against it because I don't believe a nonprofit can work and pass a levy when they don't own the property and Beau Park had not approved it. This is the same scenario that I see. It's the dilemma because you're putting them into a position that you're obligating them. And that is what their boards are supposed to do. That's how I perceive things.
Okay.
Sure.
We'll just have to agree to disagree.
Okay.
Elizabeth hasn't had a chance to speak. Elizabeth, did you want to?
Well, I was just going to speak to my own personal situation. Tony and Janelle are, the intellectuals here.
I take it as a compliment. Okay.
I started in all this going to city council. I'd never done this before in my life because I believed in saving Haymaker Forest. I live in a mobile home park off of it's Bluegrass Village off of the Greenbag Road, and it would rear people in this mobile home park of, putting it nicely, modest income. So any kind of public funding, like a park, a rail trail, a green belt or whatever with a spur trail close to Bluegrass Village where I live would be helpful. Public funding for a public library would be helpful for those of us with very modest incomes. When I moved to Bluegrass Village in 2004, August, I wanted a tree. Who wouldn't want a tree? I don't own the property. I own my mobile home. To have a tree at that time, I would have had to pay $25 a month to have a tree. It's because it's a homeowners association. Mm-hmm. They have the right. They have the rights. I have to pay my lot rent every month, which goes up every year. This year it went up $50 a month. I can't really afford to have a tree. I couldn't afford it that time. So I am a person who knows the benefit of walking in forests or walking in the woods. Put it the woods, it helps me. It helps my well-being, my mental health. I walk with friends. It's just helpful. I just was speaking to my own personal situation because I think actually there are a lot of people in my situation, people who don't have massive amounts of money. And I just wanted to present my opinion and why I was for a green belt, because we could have a spur trail close to Bluegrass Village and it would be a nice walkability thing. We don't have sidewalks where I live, and I wouldn't ask for sidewalks on Greenbag Road. It's not practical. It's a thoroughfare, and it's probably going to be widened at some point. It's just not a practical thing. So that's how all this started with me, a proponent for Haymaker Forest.
Okay.
And,
well, thank you. Appreciate it. Did either go ahead?
No, and I appreciate everything that you're saying in this. The only struggle I have is the struggle with, okay, we have someone bringing before a levy request that has no backing from the people that the levy is going to benefit Bow Park. And that just is a huge red flag to me. That
I would say no formal backing. I would say there's a lot of informal backing, not only within that, entity, but countywide.
Yeah.
And two, in terms of the people that it benefits, yes, Bow Park is the entity who receives the money and benefits in that respect, but the purpose of it is it's a benefit to the people in the community who use the parks, and I think Elizabeth makes a great point that not everybody has a big yard or acreage around their house, and so our parks, city and county, serve that function for a lot of people. It is their place to go. So I think the people do benefit, although I understand your point about the receiver of the money. I get
just
that.
from a technical legal standpoint,
I get that.
we could have 4 levy proposals a week from different individuals coming in saying, yeah, but it's, who would be against getting this money? Who would be against someone just giving me a house? I mean, why would I be against that? Well, then when I get in, I've got to take care of the insurance, I've got to take care of the maintenance, I've got to take care of everything else that goes with that. And that's not really relevant to this. It's not, well, you have a forest, you have insurance on it, there are obligations that we be putting on an entity, and I'd feel so much more comfortable if that entity was, this would be a slam dunk, you had either of those entities sitting at the table.
Yeah.
And that's...
And part of it, is...
So if they really believe in this, why aren't they here?
Well, I mean, we have no argument there because we're saying they're not doing their job. And that's why we turn to you as the larger entity, the larger authority here who has an encompassing, responsibility over the city. I mean, the county encompasses the city.
But honestly, we're not allowed to interfere with city government. We can't go in the Westover. We can't go into.
I know that. I'm not going to have
But
a legal argument. Neither one of us are qualified to have a legal argument.
I think I'm very qualified.
You think this referendum would be illegal?
That's not what you asked me.
That's what I'm asking you now.
What I specifically
That's
said
the whole
was
question
I
here.
cannot go in
I know that.
to
I
the
understand.
city.
I understand.
And this is,
It's not an issue.
if this was legitimate request, you would have already had Bow Park in city council.
That's your
And
opinion. We disagree.
You're right, except I'm one of the 3 people who has to make a decision.
Right. I understand.
I'm sorry.
And partly, I mean, I would think that, you're right, there's an assumption that Bow Park or the city would be happy with if this thing got on the ballot, and obviously if it passed. I also think there's worry on their part that, right now I feel.
They have a different plan.
They feel that there's, we have 4 levies on the books. We also have the school bond levy, we have a school levy, we have a school excess levy. I mean, there's 7 different line items on your tax bill, depending on where you live.
And West Virginia is still the third lowest tax state in the nation as a percent of income.
I just think that
I understand.
I would just
It's
love
a
a more, I would love a
legitimate
more
concern.
comprehensive plan,
Right. Yeah.
longer range plan than let's hurry up and put something on the ballot.
And from what I said, isn't Bow Park waiting to hear back about a comprehensive plan? And that's why they have held off on it. So that's what I think the 3 of us are looking at to see what that comprehensive plan is.
Yeah, and we have concerns about that. I mean, it's only,
Okay. I don't know.
I think it's I don't think they're giving.
I don't know anything about it. I just read in the paper what you read.
Yeah. By the time that plan comes back, they will be ready to use the money for one. The other thing is I have concerns about the way they're going about that
Okay.
plan.
See, I don't know. Okay. Other questions? Do you have any other? Okay, so basically we are requesting that you would come back to us in a levy type form,
But I can get you that tomorrow.
but we don't meet for a week.
I understand, but I mean, I'm saying we can get you that tomorrow, and so that, can you just go ahead and vote on it? I mean, we would
No.
appreciate.
First of all, we can't vote because we're in a work session.
Not now, but next week.
No, because we have questions to get asked from the state auditor about some concerns that I brought up.
I'm sorry for this.
That's all right.
I'm confounded
Oh, I
by
didn't.
this thing.
Okay. We'll discuss the
Our
issue.
process is, and this is precedent from the last levies.
Yes.
In 2016, is we receive the proposal or the proposed order. We send it to the West Virginia State Auditor's Office for them to verify that it meets all the criteria. And then we can put it on the agenda.
And discuss it, or delay it, or ask for more information. That's what we have to find.
And you're just saying that one form would satisfy that?
That's by state code.
That's
It's
state
in
code.
state code.
No.
If you read the levy guidelines provided by the State Auditor's Office, will
Yeah.
tell you that exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, so you're just saying yes to my question, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, yeah.
yeah, okay, yeah.
We're in agreement.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. Okay, well, I appreciate you for coming in and your passion, and we will wait for your information back to us.
All right, well, we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yep, thanks.